Hello and welcome, this is Rooflemonger, and today we will be talking about the Japan Fighting Game Publishers Roundtable that wrapped up late last night, and there was a lot going on. Many of the heavy hitters of the Japanese fighting game development scene were on site to answer a lot of questions, and also there was a bunch of announcements and, I guess, announcements of announcements to come. So first up, before anything, I know you guys are pretty hyped for anything fighting game news-wise, so let's talk about the announcements they did have first, and we'll work our way towards everything else. So we will go through them in the order they did them in. First up here, Samurai Showdown will be getting a new character, and this character is free. My understanding, this character comes from a Chinese mobile game or something like that, but hey, free is a pretty good price for a character. They did also confirm that yes, Samurai Showdown will be getting a third season pass, so more characters to come, and hey, bug them on Twitter for whatever characters you would like to see. For Street Fighter V, it looks like Street Fighter V will be getting a trial version of the game, which has everything. All 40 characters, and the trial will be good for 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, you can experience Street Fighter V with everything it has to offer, and you can just go whole hog from there. If you like it, you enjoy all the characters, hey, well then I guess you can get the game. And if not, well, it was free to try at the very least. So that is pretty interesting. Street Fighter V is a little long in the tooth now. Honestly, I'd be surprised if you at home don't already know if you like Street Fighter V or not, but if for whatever reason you do not, hey, this is the perfect opportunity coming forward. For some more meatier announcements, hey, Setsuka is finally coming to Soulcalibur 6. Setsuka will also be coming with a new stage, and also a balance update to the game. The update seems pretty sizable, and has fun little things like, hey, your clothes can finally not explode off if you don't want them to. That's an option now, finally. I like that. And that will be coming out actually fairly soon in the next few days. Things have been a little dry on the Soulcalibur front, honestly, for the last few months. So, hey, this is pretty big. New character, new stage, and a whole whack of balance changes. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's pretty cool. I dig it. So, hey, thumbs up. Tekken 7 also got its Season 4 of content announced here, so Tekken 7 also going for a long time, and hey, more stuff coming. New moves for everyone, rebalance, all that fun stuff. Also, some enhancements coming to online play, including, as you can see here, a filter that shows if the opponent is on Wi-Fi or not. One of the more shocking things come from the roundtable was the announcement that about half of the Tekken player base is on Wi-Fi, so guys, you gotta step up your game. And after that, hey, maybe a new character. Looks like Kunamitsu. Maybe, I don't actually know, but someone standing on top of a pagoda anyways. Also with that is the announcement that the Tekken World Tour is basically going online with Soulcalibur, and there will be a bunch of events and dates across the world for Soulcalibur 6 and Tekken 7 online. For Arc System Works, Arc Revo is returning now online, because hey, that kind of didn't happen this year, because, well, you know why. So yeah, that is happening, and now obviously the big deal, hey, we finally got to see what the samurai dude is all about in Guilty Gear Strive. So trailer will be linked at the end of the video if you want to see the whole thing. Also turns out he's a vampire, so yeah, that'll be weird. So that was all the announcements, but hey, a lot of stuff was kind of pushed to the side or pushed ahead a little bit, so there was also announcements of announcements to come, so let's talk about that. Not everyone could get their stuff lined up for this event specifically, but hey, so let's talk about what's coming up. So Grand Blue Fantasy Versus will be getting news next week. Don't really go into the details, but hey, there will be news forthcoming. Street Fighter V Season 5 will be formally announced on August the 5th with all the characters, and one Kenny Omega from AEW will be presenting the event. Kenny, world famous wrestler that he is still very much a very big fighting game fan, always has been as well, so hey, it's nice to have a little bit of a celebrity to go with the announcements. And what will be announced? Well, we'll have characters at very least, and maybe some more balance changes. And since they got Kenny there specifically, you know, Omega's in the name, right? So I begin to think there might be an Omega mode for Street Fighter V, like we had at the end of the life cycle for Street Fighter 4, where they'll just be testing wacky stuff. That's kind of the baseline to go forward for Street Fighter 6. We'll see, I guess. We don't know for sure. There was some talk of King of Fighters 15, and the SNK people tried to wave it away, saying, hey, that's not us, that's the guys upstairs. But they said, we don't got anything for King of Fighters 15 for you today, but it will be very soon. Now, SNK, honestly, not really big enough to hold their own events, really. But you know what? There's more PlayStation 5 events coming for games and reveals and all that. And SNK kind of had a little bit of an exclusivity deal with King of Fighters 14 with PlayStation. So I guess smart money then is expect King of Fighters 15 to come up during a new PlayStation 5 event? I don't know, that's what I think. Anyway, so soon is the word they want to stress. So we'll find out soon enough, I guess. And Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, unfortunately, there was never really going to be Dragon Ball FighterZ stuff here. I know a lot of people wanted it, but wanting it doesn't necessarily make it happen. The issue is because Toei, the rights holder, gets to say what happens when and where, and it's not really Bandai Namco or ArcSys's prerogative to be able to overturn what Toei says. So there'll be stuff later on. There will be announcements later in August on their own thing, and that's all we can tell you for now. So yes, it is coming at the very least. We will have some Dragon Ball FighterZ news sometime nebulously this month. Don't know where, don't know when, but we will get it, I guess. So hey, keep your fingers crossed for whatever character you were hoping for. Now, with the announcements out of the way, there was the whole roundtable aspect of the roundtable conference, right? Where the moderator just threw a bunch of questions at the developers as a whole. And I will tell you right now, they did the whole, hey, check us out at this hashtag, send us your questions, that kind of stuff. And the overwhelming biggest question was, yo, what about rollback netcode? And they totally dodged it, 100%. Basically living in fear of the question as far as I can tell, which is just not a good look for Japanese developers, man. Also, in the direct wake of this roundtable, Ed Boon was out there saying how great rollback netcode is and how important it is. And you know what? It is easy points, but you know what? They're earned points. Thank you very much, Ed Boon and NRS, for your netcode and the hard work you've done putting it into your games. But that all said, hey, they did talk about some stuff, so let's talk about what they did talk about. So the first roundtable question was the selection of roster characters and basically putting it to the developers there. How do you come up with your roster for your fighting game? And there was quite a few good answers. First up on the Capcom side of things, Matsumoto and Nakayama were answering basically, hey, Street Fighter's been around for a long time. And yeah, it definitely has been, right? And there's tons of classic characters. And one of the issues with having a ton of classic characters is you got a lot to pull from, but not everyone wants every character. That said, they were also mentioning that Street Fighter nominally takes place in the quote-unquote real world, and they do actually take character nationality into account quite a bit, especially for newer characters. I can tell you personal experience here, right? When they announced Abigail, that was a Canadian character, I was like almost emotional about it, man. There's so few Canadian characters in fighting games, period. So to have a Canadian was a very big deal to me. I know when Jury came out, there was very few Korean characters in fighting games as well, so having a Korean was also awesome. So that's the kind of stuff they're talking about, that putting more than just, a Japanese or an American character in the game can definitely help out. When it came to various Street Fighter character popularities, Harada was talking about how, since Street Fighter has been around so long, a lot of different groups of Street Fighter players think different things about Street Fighter as a whole based on their age brackets. And Harada was also saying, as far as the Tekken series goes, for their games, they take user opinions into the equation. But, of course, they also have their own data and their own metrics, and they also use that as well to determine what characters should make a new game. Harada also would go on to mention that apparently for Tekken, at one point a fighting fish was in the works, like a big salmon fish. Obviously, that didn't happen in the end, but it was on the table for a point. Also mentioned was, player usage in the game itself and character popularity are not necessarily anywhere near the same thing. I did mention Jury a moment ago, and Jury I think is a classic example. Jury, an incredibly popular character on the internet, but once you actually get into Street Fighter, almost nobody actually plays Jury. And they were stressing, just being popular in a game. Being popular in a game could just be as simple as you're good in the game, right? If you have a top tier character, that could make the character very popular in the game in and of itself without anything else. No character, personalities, aesthetics, or whatever. As long as you're strong, you're popular. And outside of the game, then it's more about, character personalities and aesthetics. Daisuke Ishiwatari, that's Arc System Works, was talking about how for ASW, first they decide how many characters they want to be in the game. They crank down on a number first before worrying about anything else. From there, then you worry about, what kind of character diversity will there be in like move sets, in play styles, how the characters play out in the game. And also on top of, various playstyles to appeal to a bunch of people, they also think on various looks, as they want a bunch of different looks to appeal to a bunch of different people as well. And also they recognize the need for, they want some more technically harder characters and some easier characters and some in the middle, just, working for a nice little array of characters for all skill levels. Next up, they were talking about crossplay. Now, long story short, everyone on this panel is for it. They're all for it. It basically comes down to the rights holders, the platform holders, Xbox and PlayStation. And Harada is saying, he's talked to people and they all say, oh yeah, we would love to do it. But in the end, they don't actually do it. I think they were being a little polite in regards to the platform holders, saying, there's some difficulties, but I remember before Fortnite went crossplay on everything, at Epic Games, they literally just flipped a switch and a power move and let Xbox and PlayStation play together. And then they said, oh, whoops, our bad, and then it turned back off, right? And it was literally that easy on their end to get crossplay going. So it's once again just kind of up to the stubbornness of the platform holders, and only the biggest games get to force their way as far as crossplay is concerned. They didn't say that, but that's kind of the reality of the situation. So coming up on the next generation of consoles, will crossplay be more of a thing for fighting games? Hey, I hope so. Another panel question was about just arcade controllers in general. Very much a legacy thing in fighting games, and they pretty much were like, yeah, you know what? We're all a bit older and we all love arcade sticks. And honestly, the newer generation of the FGC, a lot of them focus on the pad, and that's kind of the way things are going. There is a want across a lot of them to kind of preserve the culture of what the arcade stick represents, for later generations especially. But there's a couple issues here. There's a decline in manufacture of arcade sticks. Like myself, during the Xbox 360 era, right? There were so many people putting out arcade sticks to capture on the Street Fighter 4 craze, and there certainly wasn't anywhere near the same fight stick hype during the PS5 era. There's still some good sticks out there, right? Plenty of good sticks, actually, but not the same fervor, right? And I don't know how much that's going to carry towards the PlayStation 5 generation. It'll probably be all the smaller yet, honestly. Some of them were saying, hey, we can only use an arcade controller, and they thought, a lot of complex commands in fighting games were basically only possible on an arcade stick, but hey, the new generation of the FGC is doing just fine on pad. All these so-called too complex things, they're just mastered on pad anyways, like it's no big deal. On the Arc System Works front here, they were saying, they would like to move towards the game. It's not about, pad or stick. It's just the control scheme works, and you shouldn't even have to think about it. And I think Dragon Ball FighterZ is a pretty good example of that. There's a good mix of pad and stick players, and it works just fine either way. And one thing that was posited, which I found very interesting, is we're basically shifting towards an esports era, which I guess is fair to say, right? And your controller is like your tool, like that of an athlete. If you're a tennis player, you need your tennis racket, right? So your controller is basically that if you are an esports player. And honestly, I thought that was kind of an interesting way to look at it, right? Especially for fighting games. I know if you play a shooter or whatever, you got your mouse and keyboard, I'm sure you're very attached to whatever brand you have. But, a lot more fighting game pads and sticks are a lot more customized, at least to me anyways, than any mouse or keyboard could ever be. And so, yeah, it's a fun way to look at it, I guess. It's your tool going forward into the future. And then there was this whole little bit of Harada just kind of ripping on the Blaze Blue developer Mori for having god-awful stick usage, and he said the stick would fly out of his lap all the time, and he could just barely use it at all, and everyone had a pretty good time with that. Next up on the roundtable was what would be the user experience in future fighting games, just talking about just general gameplay stuff. And some of the stuff brought up was, hey, we need better online matchmaking. Didn't bring up netcode as it was, because once again, delay-based netcode works fine in Japan, just not everywhere else in the world, right? But some stuff that was mentioned was, if your online experience, just the online experience itself, not just the netcode, isn't tight, you will lose your player base over time, right? And there's a couple ways, to keep that user base, engaged and happy. And they're talking about just different ways of how do we do ranked, different ways of having ranking, maybe not just by number, but by skill level, that kind of stuff. Brought up with some ideas of using the AI, both to have actual AI algorithmic matchmaking, which would be a thing, and also using AI to basically cheat players into thinking they're fighting a real person. So newer players can get those couple easy wins online. That's actually been happening now in a few games, and just taking that as an idea. But they don't want AI to be crazy like old SNK bosses, as it's very easy to have an AI can crush you for free, right? And if you're old enough like me to remember those old SNK bosses, they ate your quarters a lot. That was basically the idea, was to steal your money, right? And we don't need that anymore in this day and age, because, unless EA buys Mortal Kombat, we're not going to be doing microtransactions per play anymore. The SNK crew did mention one thing, is there's obviously a lot of things they know is very easy to be done, optimal stuff to be done, but the problem is, from a business perspective, it's all about cost management, and just because something's good doesn't mean you can necessarily afford to do it, as a lot of these guys, outside of Bandai Namco and Capcom, they're not the biggest teams. They don't got infinite funds to work with, right? So that's an unfortunate and sad reality of the situation. And the final roundtable question, this was a big boy question, the perceived simplification of fighting games and countermeasures against that. And a lot of the discussion basically went like this, hey, you have a core fan base for whatever franchise you have, and that's great, but you can't only ever just cater to them, right? Because at that point, all you're ever getting is diminishing returns if you don't change stuff up. If you just do the same game over and over, well, it's the same game over and over, right? So what's the point of getting a new game? And that core player base just shrinks game by game by game, so it's a no-win situation. So stuff does have to be changed up, one, to bring in a new audience, because you always need a new audience, and to also keep the previous audience happy. But you can't just make a game to keep the old audience happy, because there's just no winning that way. You gotta bring in new blood. Daisuke Ishiwatari was saying, the difference between simple and easy, that is not the same thing. There is nothing wrong with making things easy to understand, and there is absolutely nothing to gain by making things obtuse and difficult to understand. Of course, Daisuke speaking from experience, because of everyone at this table right now, Guilty Gear Strive is kind of the big litmus test for this, because they're going in and changing a lot of the core things of the game. Now, for my money, I have a lot of fun with my Strive beta, and a lot of the changes they've been making going forward, I'm all for them, but, not everyone is, and that's going to be one of the biggest tests of exactly this. Ishiwatari was saying, you need a system that allows for big-time player growth in, say, practice mode. The more you practice the game, the better and better and better you get. But it also needs to be easy to understand for new players as well. Just concepts of, if you can look at the gameplay, you can understand what's happening at a glance. You don't need to go to the tutorial. You don't need to hit training mode. It should be easy to understand just by looking at it without just being overly complex. But in the end, there's no easy answer, because you have to bring in that new audience while also keeping your experienced, established player base happy, and it's a very, very difficult line to keep balanced on. Also, some talk, say, comparing it to other genres of game, shooters, because the average fighter just needs, honestly, a lot more depth than the average shooter, especially for a new player, right? One example that was brought up in any given shooter, let's say Call of Duty, if you sneak up on the dude and you click the button, they're dead, right? They could be 10 times the player you are, but that makes all the difference in the world. All you need to do is click on them and they're done for. And that doesn't really work the same way in a fighting game, right? Since you're on a very level playing field, that experienced player, you never get that moment of you get to jump on them, right? That doesn't work. So it's sometimes easier for different genres of games to bring in newcomers in a way where they can handle fighting more experienced vets that you just can't really do in a fighting game, which is cause of some difficulty, bringing in the new folk. But in the end, this was very much like, hey, we don't got any easy answers on this, and we all want to know how to make this happen, because we need new blood, and we still got to keep all the old people happy, and it's just a tightrope to walk, and it ain't any fun, but it is something that needs to be figured out. And there you have it, my friends. So that was the Japan Fighting Game Publishers Roundtable. So they did mention, hey, maybe we can do this in the future. That is something that could be done, just to get the devs' various thoughts on fighting game stuff. Don't always expect announcements to come with it, although, you know, if they want to generate some interest, hey, you know, maybe have something, right? But yeah, so honestly, it's pretty cool to see their brains picked on various questions. I'm not a fan of the fact they totally dodged the most asked question, which was absolutely rollback netcode, but hey, is what it is, I guess. At least we know Strive will have rollback netcode, and everyone else, well, we'll see. But my friends, that is the info from this event, and that is the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video finds you well. Go out and play some fighting games.